Now, with this album, your collaboration with Jeff Lynne, which seems to sort of, I mean, from a pundit looking back from the ELO days and Jeff Lynne being what Jeff Lynne is, to you two getting together, how did that happen?
Well, I first met Jeff on the Bob Dylan tour in London. He would come with George Harrison, and they would come each night. We were there in London about a week, and they would come and just hang around and have a beer with us, and I liked them a lot, and it was then that they gave me the album they were working on at the time was Cloud Nine, George's album, and I thought it was a fantastic sound and a great thing he'd done there, you know. And then I ran into Jeff again about a month or two later at a traffic light here in Los Angeles. So I waved him over, and it turned out he didn't live too far away, that he also lives over here. So he just started coming over the holidays. It was the Christmas holidays. And we just very casually wrote some songs. It wasn't even an album that I'd planned to do. It just began, and I thought, well, this is, God said, come on, Jeff, let's do one more. And he said, well, I got to go to England, you know, I got to go back. And I'd say, oh, come on, do one more. And we'd do one more, and we'd say, oh, that's good. Well, let's do one more. And it just kept going like that all the way through till it was done.
And the collaboration of the musicians that you were able to sort of put together, I mean, some of the Heartbreakers, some very fine musicians, including your percussionist that ended up playing drums on.
Phil Jones, yeah, he ain't famous, but he's amazing.
A great drummer.
Yeah, he's a great drummer, and.
So was it just more or less, you know, your friends getting together? For
it was really a small band. It was Jeff Lynne and myself, Mike Campbell from the Heartbreakers on guitar, and Phil Jones on the drums. There were a couple of times I think Roy Orbison sang one day, and George Harrison would come around to visit, and we got him to play on one, and he helped us with the vocals.
And Howie?
And Howie Epstein from the Heartbreakers came by twice, I think, and Ben Tinch I got for about half an hour one day, and he left. So it was just, it was nothing I'd set out to say that the band couldn't have done, that I couldn't have done with the Heartbreakers. It was just a matter of circumstance, really. They weren't around. And there was no point in turning around and doing it all over with them. So I took the occasion to call it a solo album and did it that way.
So what happened? Did you put that on hold, and then the Wilburys happened?
Yeah, when the Wilburys started to happen.
Whose idea was that?
George's, I think.
Yeah.
You'd have to blame George. It began slowly. We were all in the same area. I think Jeff was probably the catalyst for George and myself and Roy Orbison being around. Jeff had been after Roy Orbison for ages to do a record. And so when Roy had moved to Malibu, which isn't far away from where we were, so he would come around, and he was real nice, and we wrote a couple of songs, Jeff and Roy and myself. And so during the same sessions for Full Moon Fever, we would just say, okay, well, today we're going to do one for Roy. And we had the same band of Phil Jones and Mike and Jeff and me. And so, okay, put Roy up to the mic, and it's a Roy Orbison record today. And we did the same thing with Randy Newman one day. Did a track for Randy. And Del Shannon and all, so, you know, all the pals started coming over. We were just in Mike Campbell's garage. You know, just really literally pull the cars out, you know, and we'd run cables and mics out there and had a 24-track in the spare bedroom. So it was very informal recording, but anyway, to tell you about the Wilburys, it all grew out of that to some degree. George was around, and he wanted to add a track to a 12-inch single he was releasing. They were all out at dinner, as the story goes, Roy and Jeff and George, and they said, well, we'll help you do it, and so he phoned me. His guitar was at my house, and he said, I got to come get my guitar. I'm going to do this session tomorrow. Do you want to play? And I said, sure, I'd love to play. So the quickest studio available, I think, was probably the reason they phoned Bob Dylan.
Right.
And we went to Bob's house, and while we were there, Bob got interested in what was going on. And once again, we were out in the garage, you know, trying to. George had I think he had the basis of this tune, "Handle with Care." He could play the chords to it, and then we were all out in the grass, and you know, and Jeff would say, "Well, how about this?" And then, so the words just started to come. We were all sitting there throwing in words, and it was so easy, you couldn't believe it. It was so easy. And so once the track was done, I think at that point, George and Jeff had always, they had this thing about the Traveling Wilburys. You know, it was some fictitious band in their mind, and then it kept going. You know, it was a running joke. And so I think at that point, George thought, well, you know, we could just be a group.
Well, now this has been described, I mean, as the solo album.
Yeah.
The first from the Heartbreakers.
Yeah.
Yet the Heartbreakers is definitely very much together, and you're doing a new album with them as well, are you know?
Oh, yeah.
Are you satisfied with this album? I mean, I read where you almost passed off saying it was almost by accident, this album. You know, I think this is an excellent album.
Oh, well, no, don't get me wrong. I think it's real good. I'm very proud of it. But by accident, I meant that I wasn't due to make one, or nobody had, you know, talked about it, or if we usually plan them for a little bit. And this one, I was in the middle of it before I even really realized what I was doing completely. That yeah, okay, because for all I knew, there were demos, or you know, we were just fooling around. A lot of times you write songs and they don't even get to the album, you know, and you're just warming up. But I'd say, well, that sounds pretty good today, you know. Even the next day, you play the tape back, and so I just said, well, I'm just going to follow my nose, and when I get, you know, 10 or 12 done, that'll be the album. It's very enjoyable.
I mean, the singles, I Went Back Down, it's doing already big business on the charts, not only in America, but certainly down in Australia. When you look back at things that have happened and what you've stood up for, is it you actually sort of, you know, saying, well, I've never backed down?
I don't know if any of us can say he's never backed down. I think it's a good idea to back down sometimes.
But you have stood up to a lot of things that have been pressure.
Well, I've always believed, I've just had trouble with the concept of, you know, you can't do that. Sometimes you can. You know, if there's a good reason why you can't, I'll buy it like anybody else. But I've always questioned that theory of I hate it when I feel that, yeah, you can, that can be done. But, you know, the song's very, I think, probably the most like little capsulized version of that part of my songwriting. I Won't Back Down. That's it, you know. And I didn't, once again, when I was writing it, it was almost embarrassing putting it down because it's a little personal in a way, or maybe a little, I thought maybe this is too bold, you know? Maybe it's, I don't know if I want to write songs like that anymore. Yeah. But since it's been a record and everything, a lot of people that I run into really identify with it, and it does give them some spiritual strength. So I think it's okay, but I don't take it too seriously.